Welcome to week 31 of Weekly Reads, where I share where I'm currently at in books because I read more than one book at one time. And then we go through the week. I share books I finished and reviews. And then at the end of the week, I again share where I'm at so we can kind of see progress. There are a few books that are year-long books. There's a few books that just take a little bit to read or listen to or whatever. So we're going to jump into the books. First one is the one I started most recently, and it is One Texas Cowboy, Too Many, and it is by Carolyn Brown. This is the third book in the Burnt Boot Texas series. This series I have enjoyed, but I hesitate to say romance because there's definitely romance in it. However, there's a 100-year feud that has overtaken the last two books, and so I'm hopeful going into this book, but a little skeptical that we won't get as much romance. I will say 14% in. I feel like we focused a little bit more on our characters. Our male main character is Rhett. He is the cousin and to our male main character in the last book. He is neutral ground territory, so he's learning all about the feud. And then we have Leah, who is one of the feuding families. She doesn't seem super involved, but we'll see as the book progresses, and hopefully their romance is not overshadowed by the feud. As I said, I'm 14% into that. It is my physical book. The book I read with my quiet time is Breaking Free by Beth. I am about 15% of the way through, and it's about breaking free of like sin and just surrendering to God. And as I said, I read this with my Bible time. I'll keep you updated. I didn't read a ton last week because this book, my Bible reading, which I am reading through the Bible this year, and so I have a plan that if I stick with it, I will get through it by the end of the year. That fell behind, as well as my gratitude journal. It has 365 prompts, so technically you can get it through in a year, but I've definitely missed some days, and so it will be taking me over a year, probably close to 2 years to finish it, but I just wanted to add something like that into my day. But all three of these I read at the same time, so if one is neglected, they all get neglected. But those are three more books I'm in the middle of. The audiobook I'm listening to is Written in My Heart's Own Blood by Gabaldon. This is book 8 in the Outlander series. It is very hard to explain what these books are about if you have not read the other 7 because they're all interconnected. We are still following our main characters. I am 72% of the way through. I will say I've been listening to this book for a very long time. It's a very long audiobook, like 40 something hours. And so I did take a break today and finish The Silver Chair by C.S. Lewis. And now that I've had that little break, I'm jumping back into Written in My Heart's Own Blood by Gabaldon. The ebook that I am reading that I will finish either today or tomorrow is the Twisted Tales Anthology, and it is a collection of 16 short stories that take Disney movies and kind of twist them. They're like 20 to 40 pages. And with that being said, this is a 500-page book, so it's a lot, and I'm not a huge short story person, so I'm giving myself permission to skip the story if I've read 5 pages and don't enjoy it. That has helped tremendously because there were some at the beginning that I just didn't love. Hopefully we can get that finished. I was 54% this morning, and I have read some. I don't have it with me to figure out where I'm at now though. But this is the start of week 31. This is going to be a really crazy week personally, so I'm not sure how reading is going to go. That is why I'm doing my introduction like right here, right now, because this is the one time I have in the foreseeable future to actually sit down and film anything. So welcome. I forgot to film anything during week 31, so you're going to get 7 book reviews right now. So let's grab a snack and get comfy as we go over these reviews. The first book was an audiobook, and it was The Silver Chair by C.S. Lewis. This is the 4th book if you are going in publication order. Our main characters are Jill and Eustace. Eustace is Edmund Lucy Susan Peters' cousin, and he was in the book The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, so he knows a little bit about it. Him and Jill are being bullied at school, and the two of them end up in Narnia. They must help Aslan defeat a witch to get the prince safe. I thought this book was a fun listen to. I definitely like Edmund and Lucy and even Peter and Susan better than Eustace and Jill, and I think it's because those 4 have a special place in my heart. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. The second book I finished was the Twisted Tale Anthology. It has 8 authors, 16 short stories of the Twisted Tales. With that, I definitely enjoyed some of the short stories more than others. It was a very long book, and so I felt like it was never ending. I am terrible at DNFing. It would take a lot for me to DNF a book. I've never DNF'd a book, but I have now DNF'd short stories because I gave myself permission if I'm like 5 to 10 pages in and not liking the short story that I could move on to the next one. Some of them were ones like Mulan and Snow White that we had a full book on. This was a different take on it, and I believe from a different author. There were some similarities there, but there was Bambi, The Lion King, and other stories like that where it was completely new. We had never had a twisted tale from that. I am finding I don't love short stories also in those type of books, you're going to get ones you like and dislike. And so it was really hard to rate the book as a whole. I did end up settling on 3.5 stars. The third book is Collide by Bal Khabra. This is a college hockey romance, so if that's up your alley, I think you'd really enjoy this book. It was just a really fun read where Summer is finishing up her thesis on sports psychology, and they end up pairing her up with Aiden, who is the hockey captain, and some things happened and he needed to kind of make amends, and this is how he's making amends. And so this wasn't necessarily his first choice, and Summer, while she loves sports, because of some family things, does not like hockey, and you get more into it as the book goes on. So the characters had a little bit of depth. I wanted a little bit more on Aiden. I just thought it was a fun read. I ended up giving it 4.25 stars. The next book is What I Need by J. Daniels. This is the 5th book in the Alabama Summer series. Our female main character is Riley. Riley goes to her brother's wedding alone because her boyfriend and her brother do not get along because of a lot of things. And so she thinks she's going to this wedding alone, like her and her boyfriend have broken up. So her and CJ, who is her brother's friend, just kind of a quiet, ends up in a one-night stand. When Riley goes home, she realizes her and her boyfriend haven't broken up. And so she is very conflicted on what to do. And ultimately, CJ is there for her, but Riley is really scared of what her brother's going to think of everything. I end up giving that book 4.5 stars. The next book was Written in My Heart's Own Blood by Diane Gabaldon. This is the 8th book in the Outlanders series, and we still have our 4 main characters, where we have Claire and Jamie in the 1770s in America. They're during the Revolutionary War and just dealing with that. Jamie was gone and now he's back, and so they're trying to figure out how to deal with that because some things occurred while Jamie was gone. I don't want to give away anything if you haven't read other books in the series, and then the other 2 main characters, Roger and Brianna. Brianna is Jamie and Claire's daughter. They're in the 20th century. Brianna is trying to protect her son, and Roger is in the past. Lots going on with our characters. These books are very long, so a lot happens in them. And that's all I can give you because I don't want to give anything away. I end up giving that book 4 stars. The next book I read was on the Gilmore Girls book list, and it was A Room with a View by Virginia Woolfe. This book is an essay about women, their worth and their space, and all of the things that women have contributed to society and what they deserve. This book was really interesting because it was first published in 1921 and it was based on some lectures she gave in 1928. And the things she was saying are still relevant and still thought-provoking in this day and age, which almost 100 years later is a little, which is just interesting, 100 years later. That's all I'm going to say about that one. I didn't know where to land on this, to be honest with you. I did end up giving it 4 stars and it could be 5 stars. It just didn't grip me like a 5-star would. We are at the last book. I finished Shattering Time by KJ Waters. This is the 2nd book in the Stealing Time series. The 3rd book is one of the 25 books I want to read in 2025, so I'm trying to get to it. This book, our female main character is Ronnie. She was the female main character in the 1st book. And in the 1st book, she time traveled during a hurricane, and in this book, she time traveled during a hurricane. In this book, however, she time traveled a couple different places. In the 1st book, she was with her boyfriend Jeffrey, and in this book, she's with her friends Steph, Nick, and Ian. Throughout the 1st book, you don't realize why she's time traveling. You kind of get some ideas, and we get a few more questions answered in this book. Her friend Steph is very worried about her, so they're trying to get her to the hospital and trying to figure out what's going on because Ronnie did share with them what happened during the 1st hurricane. And so I'm really curious in the 3rd book if people start figuring out what's going on. I end up giving that book 4 stars. Welcome to the end of week 31. I'm going to be honest with you and say I haven't looked through the footage. I know there's going to be some reviews I'm going to have to add in there, so I'm very sorry. It is August 15th, but I've just had a really crazy last couple weeks, to be honest with you. But moving forward, my plan is to film updates on Friday because of my work schedule. I think that's going to work better. So we're just going to end out week 31 and then we'll start week 32 on Friday and just go Friday to Friday from now on. Let's go over where I'm at to end this week so we can start fresh and have a better schedule. You can probably tell I haven't been reading a ton because we've been super busy. We're gonna start with the book that I added last night and read like 10 pages of, and that is Glorious Rivals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the 2nd book in the Grandest Game series. I will say I'm intimidated going into this book because there are a lot of characters and lots of points of view, and so I'm having to remember who all these characters are and their role and their connection to the Hawthorne family. There is a Hawthorne brother that's in the game. So as I said, I got like 10 or 15 pages in. I think I'm second or third chapter. So we're gonna see how this book goes, especially if I have to read it in short chunks, because that was my complaint with the first book, as I was only able to read it in short chunks, and trying to keep track of all the characters was a struggle for me. The audiobook that I'm listening to is Barbarians Treasure by Ruby Dixon. This is book, I believe, 18 in the Ice Planet Barbarians series. Amazon and Goodreads have different numbers, but this is a book I haven't read. It is a original couple, Megan and Castrol, and so we are going back again. I feel like we skipped a lot of characters and now we're going back at the end of this series, which I think is fun because you're always wondering about different characters and their relationships, but you're seeing Megan and how she doesn't feel valuable when she's dumped on this ice planet, doesn't feel deserving of love or even friendship really, and she's working really hard to earn her keep, and then resonance happens with Cashel and he responds in ways that doesn't help her issue, but he doesn't know any better. So they're working through their communication. So it's cool to have gone back, just because the way she's projecting and like what she tells people isn't always reality, which is very true in life. But this morning, I believe I was a 40% of the way through. Now I think I'm about 80% of the way through. I am enjoying it. I think I just wish that the books went in order of timeline instead of like always flashing back. The next book is my physical book, and it is One Texas Cowboy 2 Mini. I have not picked this book up for a second, but I'm about 30% of the way through, 100 pages in. I'm liking it. The female main character is Leah Brennan, which is one of the feuding families. And this feud is intense, but I feel like the feud is causing her to really question her family, which is interesting because none of the other characters, I don't believe, have been one part of the feuding family. So it's good to actually see someone in the family and like their thoughts on it. The male main character is from out of town and is just learning about this feud. So that's always a fun time for the other characters to see just how intense this feud is. I will say my last 3 books, Breaking Free by Beth Moore, Gratitude 365, and the Bible, I am behind on and have not made time for those. So that is my goal in the next like week or two, is to figure out a good time to fit those things in, because I think they're very important, and they definitely, the last like 2 weeks, I've even looked at my Bible plan. At one point I was 7 days behind, and then I listened to a couple, and then I haven't done it for a while. So I am sure I'm at least a week behind. So that is my goal the next week, is to find time as I'm getting into my schedule and planning things out. Now that I know some things, when is a good time to do that? Because I don't want those 3 things to be on the back burner, but they are. I'm not going to really give you an update on them. They are what they were probably the last time I did this, which is not super wonderful. This is the end of week 31. We will jump into week 32 and hopefully be in a better rhythm, because my schedule 180'd.